Hello and welcome back to Getaway Day. As always, I am Mason. He somewhere is Gautam. And we are here to talk some baseball. So, as you guys are aware, I was in Los Angeles last week, and based on the lovely picture behind me, I am still here. So Gautam is running the show from his computer over in the lovely state of somewhere in the Midwest. I honestly don't even remember which state. They're all the same. And I'm out here in beautiful Los Angeles, California, in a Best Western. So,
Woo!
But yeah, so I should be back next week, and we'll be running things as normal, which means that we will finally have the YouTube episodes for last week. I think I have the wrong ones listed in my rundown here. Episodes 105 and 106 will be on YouTube about 1 to 2 weeks late, depending on the one that you're wanting to watch. But we will get those up there. We have not forgotten about them. It's just a little hard to do video editing from an iPad whenever I don't have the form or the files. So we'll be holding off on those. One other programming note before we get into it. We are going to be moving the recording night this year because, again this year, Gautam has his 2023 grown person softball season that is going to be playing on Tuesday nights, so he won't be able to be here. So I think we're going to try Monday nights and see how that goes. So
maybe we'll win a game in softball this year. We'll see.
Do you want me to come podcast from the softball game?
That would be great. Live pod.
I'll do it. Live pod. Yeah, so I think that's all we got for programming notes. Is there anything else you can think of before we get into it?
I don't think so. Thanks for joining us from afar.
Yeah, not a problem. So, I guess before we get into this week in baseball, how are you doing? Anything interesting going on in your life?
I don't know. Just living the dream. Happy Tuesday.
Is it a good dream or is it more of a nightmare?
It's not too bad. Making do with it.
Fair enough. All right. Well, then we'll get right into this week in baseball. And I want to start with an experience that I got to have on Friday of last week. So, as I mentioned, I'm out here in LA. The Angels were in town against the Rangers here this weekend. So, I went to game one on Friday. It's a really, really fun game. A lot better experience than our trip to LA or to Anaheim last year. The food still sucks. That hasn't improved.
You get any nachos this time?
I did not get nachos. I got one of the burgers from that little burger joint that they have. It was very meh. The fries were decent. I'll give them that. The fries were decent. Some pretty good beer, so I'm happy. But yeah, so that was a really, really interesting game because for basically the entire first 7 innings of that game, it was dominated by the Rangers. Who was it? Tyler Anderson started that game. He only went about 4 2/3. He got pulled. The Angels threw in, I think it was Jaime Barria, right?
I'm trying to look up this box score because I honestly did not watch your game. So
yeah, so they put in, I believe it was Jaime Barria, let him go 75 plus pitches in relief for the Angels. It seemed like he
does that a lot. He's like he's made starts for them the last few years, and he kind of just like does the long man kind of thing.
Okay, so that is a typical role for him. Yeah. Okay, it felt so weird because I knew
4 innings.
I knew he came in the 4th, and it was just really strange to me. Or did he come in the 5th?
He came in the 6th, and he actually pitched great. He pitched 4 innings of 1 run, which was unearned, and he only gave up 3 hits in those 4 innings. I mean,
yeah, and like he clearly looked good, but I just kept looking up at the pitch count, and it's like, what in the world? And the Angels were down 4-0 at one point, and it just kind of seemed like they weren't really trying to win that game. They scratch across a run in, I believe, the 7th to bring it to 4-1, and then it just kind of keeps going. You're set up for disappointment. And then the 9th inning comes around, and the Angels end up going off to put up a three spot in the bottom of the 9th to tie it up. which I don't remember the exact sequence of how that happened.
I'll tell you right
Then,
here in 1 second.
all right,
So they brought in Will Smith, I believe.
yes,
Will Smith came in and Rendon singled, Renfro lined out, Ward grounded out. Then, oh shoot. Oh no, yeah, this is right. Brandon Drury singled, Chad Wallach doubled to score Ward and Drury, and then Renhefo singled to tie the game. So that was the ninth
yeah.
inning.
Oh yeah, because I remember Chad Wallach came in and so they took out not O'Hoppe. Who was it that was catching earlier in the game?
Stassi or
No, it wasn't
Tice?
Stassi.
Matt
Yes, Matt
Tice.
Tice. So they took out Matt Tice pretty early in the game, honestly. I think like probably 6th or 7th inning, he came out. And then Chad Wallach came in, and it felt just really odd. Like that's the point where I'm like, okay, Angels lost. Chad Wallach can't do anything, and then he doubles into the gap, and the place went electric. I have never heard of Angels fans being that loud, but holy crap! And then you fast forward to the 10th inning, and they get through that clean. Was that still Berea, or was that?
That was some other. That was Carlos Estevez, actually.
Okay, so Carlos Estevez gets through it clean. I don't even think the runner advanced to third.
Yeah, he struck out. Simeon walked and then ground out.
Okay, yeah, so he didn't even get to third. Like that's how well Estevez pitched that inning. Then you get to the bottom of the 10th. They intentionally walk Trout with Neto on second. So you have Neto, Trout, Otani's up to bat. He ends up grounding into a fielder's choice. They get Trout at second. So Neto moves over to third. Then they decide to pull Will Smith.
Yep.
And I believe it's Rendon was next, right?
Yep, they brought in Josh Sabors.
Yes. And watching his warm-up throws, he just looked bad. So I looked over to the guy next to me, and I actually recorded a TikTok for it, and I was gonna post it, and then I listened to it, and we were yelling so loud that it cut out the audio. So like it was just a completely useless TikTok. So it didn't end up getting posted. But I just looked over to the dude next to me and go, he looks terrible. I'm guessing that the first pitch is going to be wild, Neto scores, and we walk it off. Sure enough, very first pitch in the dirt to the backstop, Neto crosses the plate, and it sounded like the Angels just won their first playoff series with Trout and Otani on the roster.
Wow.
Like, that's how loud that place got. It was nuts.
That sounds super exciting, especially since the first, 8 innings of your game were kind of sleepy, especially for the home team.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like the biggest play was a deep fly out to basically right in front of where I was sitting, because I was only 7 rows off the field in right field down the foul pole, or at the foul pole, basically. So like an Otani home run would have basically come right to me. But yeah, there was a deep fly ball that got caught at the track, and outside of that, it was just quiet the entire game until the 9th inning, and then it was loud.
Wow.
I was actually very pleased to see Angels fans be that supportive. The place stayed packed. Like, it didn't clear out at all. So,
yeah, sounds like a good game to watch. And
yeah,
those teams are actually kind of interesting because they are both doing quite well in the AL West, while the Astros are kind of struggling here. So maybe there's an opportunity for one of them to kind of overtake the Astros, even though I'm sure the Astros will pick it up here as we move along.
because Texas is actually leading the division right now with a 21-13 record. They've won 7 out of their last 10. They've got a plus 86 run differential. They've scored 223 runs this year, which is the second most in the majors.
Plus 86. That's really impressive.
Yeah, the only team that's better is Tampa.
Wow, yeah. And how are they doing this? How is their offense so good?
That is something that I honestly couldn't tell you. I was surprised. So is Corey Seager hurt? Because Ezekiel Duran's been playing short.
Yes.
Okay. Because like Ezekiel Duran has been playing short.
Yep.
I honestly couldn't tell you who their big run producer is. I know Jonah
So
Heim is doing fairly decent.
yeah,
Josh Young is doing fairly decent.
yeah. So one of the biggest surprises for me is that Jonah Heim is actually a good hitter because last year he started super hot and people were like, "Oh, Jonah Heim, pretty decent player." He faded big time down the stretch, and it was looking like, "Oh, okay, he's just like a defensive catcher." And this year, he's hitting 314, 383, 559. He's basically been one of the best hitting catchers in the league. Don't look at Sean Murphy's numbers; those are just out of this world.
Sean Murphy's OPSing like 900, isn't
Yeah,
he?
he's if the season ended today, he'd probably be the MVP. Um, but
Yeah.
we've talked about Adolis Garcia a few weeks ago, just like how he's continued to improve. He's just having an awesome season again. Marcus Simeon doing his thing as he pretty much does every year now, and you know this lineup is really clicking, even with bottom of the order guys like Leody Taveras, who seems like he's maybe having his breakout here, hitting 288, 358, 438. I mean, that's if you're getting that from your number 8 hitting center fielder, you're looking like you're in pretty good shape, and they're doing it all without Seager at this point. So maybe they can keep
Yeah,
it up.
you've got 8 home runs out of a finally healthy Josh Young, which is really good to see. You got Nathaniel Lowe, who is still just kind of as solid as he was last year. Like he's not doing anything incredibly flashy, so you don't hear much about him. Like he's only got 4 home runs, but he's hitting 261, 342, 425. He's put up about a WAR.
He's basically not
Uh,
hurting you from that first base spot.
yeah,
He's giving you what you
which
need.
exactly. So this is a this is a really really solid team. Like nobody seems to be doing anything incredibly flashy. They're just all really really solid players. I think um Mitch, if you're looking at WRC plus, like the 3 that stand out are Mitch Garver, who's not played
He's
hardly at
hurt, yeah.
all, Corey Seager, who's hurt and not played hardly at all, and Jonah Heim, who, as we mentioned, was kind of just hitting out of his mind right now.
Yeah.
So, like everyone else is like kind of reasonable where you would think they would be. Marcus Simeon at a 137 WRC plus, that's kind of normal for him at this point. You got a lot of guys in the 110s to 120s. Like Travis Janikowski is the one that's kind of standing out to me as being a little odd.
Yeah. I wouldn't really expect that to keep up. He's kind of showed us who he is at this point, I think.
Yeah. But like this is a really solid Texas team, and it's really, really nice to see. And then on the pitching side, like ditto. Like DeGrom's
Pitching's
hurt again,
yeah,
which
DeGrom's hurt
sucks.
again, so obviously that's a concern. But
But
look at what he
Dane
stepped
Dunning
in
has been
in a big way.
awesome.
Yeah.
He actually got the start in that game that I was at. It was Dane Dunning, and he pitched really, really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
He's pitched what 25 innings of 1.42 ERA ball. Obviously, that's a lot lower than a FIP of 319. So, like maybe he's getting some luck there, especially with only a 14% K rate.
Yeah.
But like he's still been pitching really, really well. He's got a really high ground ball percentage, which kind of explains his strikeout rate being low, just not quite that low. So I'm curious to see if this is finally the breakout year for Dane Dunning.
Yeah. That would be a big help, especially if DeGrom's out. But Nathan Evaldi, last 2 starts, complete game, and then 8 innings. So he's going deep into games. Like apparently no one's had back-to-back complete games since like 2014 or something. I don't remember which pitcher it was, but that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. Martin Perez is looking a little bit more like the Martin Perez that we were expecting to see last year, with a homer per 9 that is significantly higher than 0.5.
But he's still not bad.
But he's still pitching well.
Yeah.
Like he's got a 3.86 ERA. That's not bad. When that's your worst starter, that's a pretty good rotation right there.
Andrew Heaney's
Brock
been
Burke
a
out of
little
the
rough.
bullpen has been really, really good. Like I don't know. I'm kind of impressed with this team. Like even Ian Kennedy has a pretty decent ERA. Granted, he's only pitched 8 innings,
I think,
but
well, so that game you watched actually kind of points out their weakness. I think the bullpen's a bit of an issue with some of these guys. Like they've kind of gone through Jose Leclerc as their closer. Will Smith has been okay. Obviously, he wasn't good in the game you watched, but maybe that's like if
yeah,
they continue what they've been doing, like if the bullpen's your biggest issue, then that's not that big a deal at this point in the season to me.
yeah. And right now they have Brock Burke, who they can rely on, and he's been really good so far. I don't think he's had a blow up appearance yet. Like, so if you can lean on a couple guys through the first half of the season, maybe a couple guys get hot in the second half, and then you make the postseason, and hopefully everyone's clicking. So that's exactly how the Braves won 2 years ago.
I was going to say the Phillies last year, where their
And yeah,
bullpen
and
was
the Phillies
terrible all
last year.
year, and then they kind of just turned it on at the end of the season.
Yeah, so if the rest of your team is good enough, that could get you to a World Series.
Right.
But then the Angels, like they're 20-16. They've got a plus 14 run differential, which is a lot more what we'd expect. But they've been playing pretty solid ball. They've scored a lot of runs this year. They've also given up a lot of runs, which is kind of what we were predicting for this team going into the season. They brought in Hunter Renfroe. They've got Trout. They've got Ohtani. They've got Taylor Ward. Zach Neto has been producing for them at the top of the order. Their pitching kind of leaves a lot to be desired. Outside of Ohtani, they really don't have anybody who's elite or even, I don't want to say excellent. I would say elite, excellent. What's the next
Good.
one?
I think Patrick Sandoval is good.
Okay. And then the rest of the guys are just kind of meh.
Yeah.
And that meh is where they're going to struggle. And that's where they've been struggling. Their bullpen with guys like Carlos Estevez. Aaron Loop, I haven't heard anything about yet. Is he hurt? Or is he just not pitching well?
I don't know, but I do know that Carlos Estevez has been insanely good this season. And that shocks me, especially when I saw his spring training and how bad he was doing. He just figured everything out after spring training. So don't look at spring training numbers, basically.
Yeah. So this has been a really interesting division, and that matchup was a really, really good matchup. I think the Angels ended up losing the next 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. I know it wasn't a sweep, so. But yeah, Texas has won their last 3 games. So yeah, so they won game 2 and 3 against the Angels. I think one of them actually, the Angels bullpen did blow up. I think they're in game 3 because I think they had the lead, gave it up, and ended up losing. But the other series that happened this weekend that was kind of along the same lines was actually Dodgers and Padres. Both of the teams that were kind of expecting to be at the top of the NL West, they faced off in San Diego. Series was split coming into game 3. They were about 2.5 games split in the standings. So this is a big series for them early in the year. For the first 9 innings, it just looked like terrible baseball, to be honest. Like, defense was not clicking. You had Juan Soto in the outfield, so that should just tell you everything. He had a ball in his glove that he dropped. And then he had a couple, like the very next ball in play went right to him, and he took a terrible route on it.
You know it's so funny you say that about Juan Soto, because like Juan Soto is 23, right?
Yeah.
But he plays baseball like he's like an old man. Like
Yeah.
all his skills are like old man. Like he's a very poor fielder. He's not like super athletic in the field at all. And he just like takes a lot of walks and hits for power. I mean, sounds like an old
Pretty
guy.
much.
Yeah.
It sounds like Nelson Cruz now.
Yeah. Right.
But then even on the Dodgers side of fielding, James Outman had a pretty bad error, a ball that was in his glove that he missed.
Misplays, yeah, in center.
Mookie Betts had one that he probably should have caught, and he ended up dropping it. It was in his glove. And so this game made it was, 2-1 Padres. Up until the ninth inning, when Mookie Betts comes up, makes up for his mistake, and ties it on a solo shot to dead center field, 400 foot, sends us to extras. And then in the 10th inning, the Dodgers, I think, finally figured out how to hit. A ground out moved Freddie Freeman to third. Muncy struck out. Michael Busch came up and hit an RBI single, and then James Outman comes up and hits a 2-run homer to give him a 3-run lead going into the bottom of the inning. And the Padres were basically just dead in the water at that point. I mean, they hadn't been hitting that game either. So that was a pretty decisive game there for that series that is now set the Dodgers up in the lead for the division. They're actually going to be facing off again next weekend here in LA. And I'm planning on going to Friday's game 1.
Oh, nice.
But, yeah, this is a couple early season matchups between these two teams that could really set the tone for this division. So
let's talk about the NL Central.
Ooh, I don't want to. Can we not? Can we just end the podcast here?
This is the first time you've declined to want to talk about the NL Central in the history of the podcast.
That's for a reason. This is not a fun conversation for me because, I mean, here, let me just read you the standings real quick just to put this in perspective as to what we need to discuss here. So first place at 21-15 is the Pittsburgh Pirates. We talked about them last week, said some really nice things. Then in second place, you got the Milwaukee Brewers at 20-15. Third place, Chicago Cubs, 17-18. Fourth place, Cincinnati Reds at 14-20. And then your last place, St. Louis Cardinals at 12-24.
As you wipe your eyes and look sad.
Okay. Yeah, it's been really tough to watch because it's like you can't even say like this is the reason that the Cardinals are bad because there's no one reason. There's about 4.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why they've been bad.
Yeah, and so like there's not one thing to point at and say, well, we could fix that and then we'll go on a run. No, it feels like it's the most hopeless first month that we've had ever. And I think since 1973, that's actually very true. This is the worst start the Cardinals have had since 1973 in the first month of the season, which I think at the end of the first month, they were, 10-20?
Yeah, because they just finally ended their 8-game losing streak on Sunday. They won yesterday, and,
Yeah, and right now they've got the lead, but this game has been kind of back and forth here, so we'll see how that ends up finishing up. But I believe as we're speaking right now, it is 4-3 St. Louis.
Yes.
Dansby just hit a 2-run homer here about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, last inning, yeah.
Yep. So this series is going to be really, really indicative of, or really important to, like, if the Cardinals can actually rebound in the division, hopefully climb up out of last place.
And that's the thing, like, every series is important right now for the Cardinals because they've just dug themselves in a hole. Like, they have to play close to 600 ball the rest of the season to get to 85 wins, I think. So that puts them, like, in wild card contention. This division's quite bad, as we're going to understand here. Because the Pirates, who we just talked about last week, they went off and they had a 7-game losing streak. So they didn't even really pick up much ground on the Cardinals at all because, everyone in this division was losing. The Brewers aren't really playing super well. The Cubs are just kind of struggling right now too.
I mean, just the records in the last 10 games for these teams. Do you have the standings up? Or are you looking at them? Or
I'm not right now.
Okay, so which of the 5 NL Central teams do you think has the best record in the last 10 games?
I think it might actually be the Reds.
It is the Reds. Yeah. Do you know what that record is?
Probably 5-5.
It is 5-5.
Yeah.
That was the best. Then you've got Milwaukee, who was 4-6. Pittsburgh and Chicago, both 3-7. And then the Cardinals, who have just won 2 games coming off of an 8-game losing streak. So 2-8.
Yeah.
Like, this has been an awful last 2 weeks for the NL Central. Just absolutely miserable. When the Reds are the best team in the division over a 2-week span, that's a problem. because this is a Reds team that has given up 180 runs. They've only scored 144. They have lost 12 games on the road. They've only won 4 times on the road. They do fairly decent in Great American Ballpark. They've actually won more than they've lost. But they are 5 games under 500 against better than 500 teams. Like, they're just bad. And they're the best team over the last 2 weeks. So this is a division that is in some pretty bleak times right now. And I think that's pretty much epitomized by, and I know you wanted to talk about this too, so this isn't just me complaining about the Cardinals. This was all planned. It's kind of epitomized by something the Cardinals just did here a couple days ago. They, bringing back Adam Wainwright from the IL, they optioned Guillermo Zuniga back to AAA, but then they DFA'd Taylor Motter and brought up Trace Barrera, which for those of you that don't know, Trace Barrera is the Cardinals' third-string catcher. So now we're carrying 3 catchers on the roster, and as part of that, they basically said that Wilson Contreras is not going to be catching for the foreseeable future. We're going to be rocking with Andrew Kisner is the primary backstop, and then Trace Barrera will be the backup, and Wilson Contreras is going to be playing DH. There's been a lot of news articles and people saying XYZ, a lot of people speculating, whatever. What we do know is that Mozeliak and Marmol both kind of came out and said Wilson's effort is there. He's putting in the effort to try and get where we want him to be. He's not there yet. As far as being able to game plan and come in and replace Yachty. Like, they're realizing that what they had in Yachty is something that was not easy to be replaced, which they knew. But it's a lot harder than even they anticipated, I think, is the main thing. Because he's not been the guy that's back there coaching these young starters through games and that we had with Yachty. So that's kind of the main thing that I have been able to figure out for sure is true, and I can believe that. Because, yes, Wilson has not really been – he's never been regarded as a great game caller. His framing has gotten better. His defense has gotten better over the years, but he never really got to the point where he was, like, just calling games on his own, right?
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, especially the Cardinals, who signed him to a 5-year deal to be their catcher. So,
well, and that's the thing. It's not a surprise. I knew that coming into it.
Yeah,
and
so if it's a surprise to them,
that sits here and talks.
That's why, like, when I hear the messaging from both the manager and the president of baseball operations basically saying, "Oh, it's not his." Like, we're not blaming him or not. But that's exactly what they are doing by making this move. They are scapegoating him for the start of the season because he's an offensive catcher first, and that's the reason he got $87.5 million.
Really good offense.
And, he's been hitting pretty much how he normally hits. That's not surprising. If the Cardinals have even got off to like a average start, this never would have happened. It's not because of how he's played. He's played exactly to his career levels in both sides of the ball, and that's the thing that's like really bothersome about this situation, I think.
Yeah, it's like he is exactly what I thought we were getting, and that's fine. There was an article that Katie Wu put out today where there were some comments from Jack Flaherty and Adam Wainwright, and both of them are
big credit to them, actually, because they're the ones stepping up for the organization, because the messaging from the leadership has been so bad for this whole situation. The players standing up for their teammate Contreras.
Yeah,
that was the best thing that I've seen come out of this so far.
Yeah, like Flaherty has been pitching the whole season so far. I think he missed one start, right?
I think he's made all Wainwright.
Oh, he has made them all? Okay. For some reason, I thought he missed his first one. Wainwright just came back on Saturday, but both of those guys are saying that they all love Contreras. They love working with him. Those two want to continue to pitch to him to help build that rapport. They said that it is on the pitchers. the pitchers have not been performing up to what they can do. Jordan Montgomery excluded. He has actually pitched really well, and he's been throwing to Wilson Contreras for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, there's no reason to blame Wilson here. Wilson has shown that he can do what he's always done. Jordan Montgomery has pitched perfectly fine. This is not necessarily a Wilson Contreras issue. This is a pitching staff issue. If the young pitchers aren't comfortable with Wilson, I don't really know what they're wanting. Like,
yeah.
Andrew Kisner is a decent defensive catcher. His bat is miserable. I'm sorry, DZ. I know you're listening. I know he's an NC State guy, but his bat is terrible.
And even the defensive metrics don't show him to be like anything that special. Really, he's pretty below average, honestly.
So
it's so strange.
What is the main? Is it his game planning? What's the difference between?
And what that's Wilson's what I hated about what the manager and the president said. Basically, they were saying like, "Oh, we have some special system, and he's not up to our standards," and it's just so. It's so they're like, they're just making some change to make a change rather than like.
But at the exact same time, they're saying he's putting in all the effort. We're asking him.
So they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so he's not living up to your standards, but he's doing everything you're asking. So are you saying that his talent isn't where you need it to be? Because he's not just going to magically grow talent out the ass. Right. That's not how this works.
He's an established player. Like his talent level can only change so much at this point. He kind of is what he is.
And like he's been improving too. Like that's the thing. Like he's been improving a little bit, but there's only so much room for growth left.
Now, my number one question when this whole thing came out was, how is Wilson Contreras supposed to become a better catcher by not playing
if he's
catcher?
Not catching?
Yes.
That is what Katie Wu said in her very last sentence of her new article from today. She's like, it doesn't add up, because how are you going to build rapport with pitchers if you're not catching them?
Right. Yeah. And if you go back to spring training, every Cardinal starting pitcher had quotes saying, "Oh, it's so great working with Wilson." Wilson skipped the World Baseball Classic to build up rapport with his pitching staff.
Yeah, and then some of them didn't show up to spring because they went off to the WBC. That's on them. Like, the WBC is a big thing, and I think it's really important for baseball. But at the same time, you can't blame him if they went to do that.
I know.
He was there. He was putting in the work. He worked with Trace Barrera and Andrew Kisner every day. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't get it. Like, they all like each other, too. Like, that's the weird part, is, like, nobody told Wilson that this was happening until Trace was there in the clubhouse. Yeah. Because he saw Matter's locker was gone, and then he's like, who's here? And someone pointed at Trace Barrera. It's like, what?
Yeah, and the one thing I'll also mention about the actual stuff that was reported and was coming out from whatever sources, the first day, it was stated that he was going to be playing the outfield and playing DH. Then 24 hours later, Mozeliak came out and said, no, he's actually only going to be playing DH. So it's like they don't have any consistency with the messages that they're putting out, and it's just kind of like a terrible look for them right now.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a terrible look on top of what's already been a terrible look, which is them not addressing the pitching in the offseason like they should have, and they said that they were going to do. They didn't. Then they go out, they sign a big catcher to a huge deal, and then they immediately seem to kind of backtrack on it. And the weirdest thing to me is actually not anything that they're saying about, like, Wilson's lack of defensive talent, his lack of game calling. None of that is what's weird to me. What's weird to me is all the comments regarding the Sean Murphy trade that they didn't make. Because it's like, well, hindsight's 2020. So you're saying that you shouldn't have signed Wilson and you should have traded for Murphy? Like, yeah, we can all know that, but you don't say that out loud. When you have a guy signed a 5-year, $87.5 million contract.
Yeah, that's the one effect that we're not even, like, we haven't even really considered here. Like, you're 30 some games into the 5-year contract and you're already like putting your prized offseason acquisition in such a awkward position, and like he probably does not feel good about the situation at all.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I'd
it
be
sucks.
pissed.
Like you just you signed to play catcher for the team, and 30 games in there, they're telling you you're not capable of doing the job you thought you're going to be doing.
Yeah, like it. Something really, really stinks here. They're looking for something to blame that's not themselves.
Yeah.
Is what they're doing.
So so like the
The
actual
new
problems with the team, we go back to those, like the starting
yeah,
pitching.
like
If you
well,
look
really
at the
just pitching
starting
in general.
pitchers, right? Other than Jordan Montgomery, all 4 of the other guys, and 5 when you add in Wainwright's 1-star. I'm not going to count that yet, but all those guys have pitched very badly. Honestly, like there's no other way to.
Jordan Montgomery is the only one
Yeah.
with an under 4 ERA.
Yep. And
And
where's
like St.
the
Louis
where's
is
like the accountability for those guys? Like why are they not even part of these conversations coming from the Cardinals? Like why are they not saying, "Oh, Steven Matz is like at risk of losing his job in the rotation"? That doesn't even seem like it's
because
being
we don't
considered.
have any other starters to take his spot. We have catchers.
Where's Matthew Liberatore dominating AAA in the picture? I'm confused.
I
Like
don't know.
it seems so obvious to me and you that the starting pitching is the biggest issue with the team. And why are the
Followed
Cardinals not
closely
even
by
like they're doing every other thing but address that?
well, and it's followed fairly closely by the bullpen.
The bullpen's been okay, I think. They've had
Yeah,
some
but
struggles,
it's not good enough to be able to support a rotation that has a 5.26 ERA, being the 21st best. So ninth worst for those of you that speak normal. Ninth worst rotation in baseball, behind Baltimore. Makes sense. They have one somewhat decent pitcher, maybe in Kyle Gibson, but not really. The Mets somehow, which that just feels fluky, to be honest.
they've had a lot of injuries, and Max Scherzer hasn't pitched well or anything. So
The White Sox, which we talked about last week. The Rockies, they never have good starting. Boston, ditto. Kansas City, they haven't been able to pitch for like 112 years. Does that seem right?
yeah,
Cincinnati and Oakland. Like, there's only one team back there that you think of and go, oh, they should probably be better than that. And that's the Mets.
Mhm.
Everyone else, it kind of makes sense that they're the worst rotations in the league because we all kind of know that at this point. And St. Louis is right there with them. Like, that is the number one problem. You look at the run differential for the Cardinals, minus 17. They put up 159 runs. That's decent. It's not great. The offense is underperforming for sure. But they've given up 176. Like, that's a lot of runs given up. And you go and look at the relievers, and that number is better. It's 3.74 for the relievers. They are right in the middle of the pack. They're the 15th in ERA for the relief staff. So, like, okay, pitching staff problem. One is 15th in the league. The other is 21st. Let's address the 21st first, which is the bulk of your innings. That should help. And we kind of knew that last year, and they never did anything. So then you start looking at advanced stats, and because ERA is not the only thing, what's their FIP? Maybe they're just getting incredibly unlucky. And St. Louis is only 2 spots better. They have a 4.73 FIP compared to their 5.26 ERA for the starters. What's their WHIP? I believe it's 1.55, if I'm not mistaken. 1.54, third worst in the league. What's their BABIP? 342, second worst in the league, which maybe means they're getting a bit unlucky there, but not, I don't think really all that much.
Right, because they're giving
So
up hard contact, so that
yeah,
kind of makes sense. And yeah,
what's
and
what's their K per nine?
the maybe the
Look at that.
most one of the more surprising things about this team is like the defense has been pretty bad too, which is just
Yeah,
not a Cardinals thing.
in that I'm I'm kind of confused as to where that's from because I wonder if part of it is just from like the whole the there's so much being put on the position players to carry this team right now that they're overextending themselves and therefore playing out of their norms. And so I
Could be.
kind of feel like that's part of it because like this is a team that is they were a really really good defensive team the last like 3 years. They won the team gold glove the last 2 years.
Yeah,
But
no
they've
doubt
got
that.
the fifth worst UZR, which maybe UZR per 150 is a little bit better to look at, right? Third worst UZR per 150. Team outs above average. They are in the middle at 15. DRS 18, so kind of right in the middle. But this is a team that's been the top of the league in all those categories the last 3 years.
And when you have a staff like they do that's all pitch to contact and your defense doesn't work, the reason the Cardinals have been so good with like a low K staff is because they turn all the ground balls into outs basically. And this year they're just
Yeah,
not doing that. And I
and
think that's actually sort of related. We can relate that to the Contreras situation because he's playing DH now. You've got a guy like Nolan Gorman who's surely going to lose at bats, and he's going to be playing second base regularly.
but
He's a
but
very
Nolan Gorman's
poor
been the best hitter on the team, so he needs to
right.
also be
No,
in the lineup.
he absolutely needs to be in the lineup. I understand that, but you're
Yeah,
creating
so
more log jams throughout the roster because Gorman goes to
while
second
worsening your
base,
defense.
then other guys lose out on playing time. The outfield's been kind of a revolving door of guys all season long. No one's been able to stick in one spot. Maybe that's a part of the defensive issue too. Um,
I mean, the only guy who has had a spot and kept it since he's been healthy is Newt,
even
which is
he
kind of what we
hasn't he played some center field and right field too.
well. So he's in the lineup every day. Is
Yeah,
kind of my point.
I understand. Yeah,
Um, if he's playing right versus center, I'm not really too concerned about. Maybe defensively I should be, and I think maybe that's what you're getting at. But just as far as the logjam is concerned, he's the only guy that cemented himself as a lineup staple. Like everyone else is a revolving door with Burleson, with Yepes kind of coming up and down, with Tyler O'Neill, who's on the IL, Dylan Carlson, who right now is TON's on the IL, has locked down the center field job. He's got it locked down while TON's on the IL. Jordan Walker got sent down because there wasn't enough time or enough playing time for
and
everybody.
that's and
Like
the
that's the main
Contreras going
reason.
to DH hurts you like from the logjam perspective because it's not making things better. They just have too many DH types on the roster, and
And Yepes and Burleson
right,
and
yeah,
Gorman,
and
like that's
Gorman.
three right there.
And then if you say that Contreras is a DH too, you got four DHs. You can that just doesn't work on a roster.
Yeah,
So
I don't know, but this has been really really hard to watch. I'm not gonna lie, I've not watched a single Cardinal game since I've been in LA. Not a one. And to be honest, been kind of nice. Like I'm gonna go back to watching them when I get home. Part of it's just I don't have enough screens to be able to do that out here, but like it's not on the TV, so I'd have to do it on my iPad. But I'm using that most of the time, so part of it's just that. But at the same time, it's been kind of nice not being frustrated all of the time. And I think that's something that the Cardinals front office is kind of forgetting is they're taking for granted the fan base that's always been there and has continued to be there through the years while they were successful. I mean, they
yeah,
were there when they weren't successful either, but we haven't seen that in a long time.
there was one game like they blew a late lead. It was a home game, um, and like the fans like left early and they were booing, and it was crazy. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I haven't either. And like this is something that has been kind of coming to a head the last couple years because his team has just kind of been looking worse and worse, while the offense has been looking better and better. But it's just been so weird, and now it just seems like it's at the point where something is going to have to happen. Someone's going to have to take responsibility for it, and right now it doesn't seem like anyone's willing to do that. So they're going to piss off a lot of fans, and this is a fan base that, like, Dodgers fans, the diehard Dodgers fans, it's hard to make them mad. Like, you can make them mad, but it's hard to drive them away. Cubs fans that were there for years in the bad times, it's hard to drive them away. This is a team that's kind of like that, and right now with this start and nobody taking accountability, they're doing it. Like, just say, this is on me. Then try and fix it. Don't just blame people.
Right.
That we know it's not their fault.
Right. And
So,
it's
Marmola's made questionable decisions that have led to us losing games. Okay? Take some responsibility for those individual losses. Mozeliak didn't go out and try and address the pitching situation at all. Take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Build a wit. Where's the money you could have handed out to some free agent pitchers? I know that Mozeliak is pretty much bombed in the free agent market for his entire career, but why didn't you pressure him to trade for somebody? Pablo Lopez was available. He went to the Twins. He's pitching fairly well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why didn't we do that? Like, there's blame to go around on why the roster is the way it is, and none of that is on the guys that are actually on the roster.
Yeah, the roster doesn't. It just, like we've been saying, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. They have too many position players that don't have positions. They have too many like mid-tier starters. It's just like weird. They didn't make
and
a
then
trade.
for your main excuse to be this guy isn't Yadier Molina is bullshit.
Agreed.
So,
all right, what do you say we talk about some other teams in this division?
let's talk about one that let's talk about someone that's not the Cardinals.
Let's talk about the Cubs here for a quick second. So the Cubs have a real opportunity here to take advantage of the Cardinals sucking this year and go win this division. This never happens. When's the last time the Cardinals had a losing season? It was 2007.
Yeah, and before that was what, 90?
Before this
98?
century. Yeah. So
not 98, 97.
Right. So
yeah,
it doesn't happen very often, and the Cubs are just sort of. There have been some like very encouraging things about their season. They are second in Major League Baseball with a 3.33 team ERA. The offense at times has looked pretty good. In recent like couple of weeks, they've really kind of hit a slump. But like you can see the makings of a pretty solid team. Their run differential looks really good. I think it's the second best in the National League. And you
yes, behind only Atlanta at plus 56.
Yeah,
so the Cubs have a plus 44.
So they have a plus 44 run differential, yet the record's just 17 and 18. So you can easily see like some of the bad luck in one run games. I think they're 2 and 8 in 1-run games. Maybe that corrects a little bit. You can see them playing a little bit better. Basically, like the opportunity here is that I don't know, like they can play better than they have.
They're playing 500 ball pretty much no matter how you break it down. They're 500 on the road. They're one game shy of 500. Or sorry, they're 500 at home. They're one game shy of 500 on the road. They're 500 against 500 or better opponents. Like this is a solid team, and it's a team that we kind of knew wasn't maybe going to be absolutely stellar, but they were definitely improving from where they were at last year. This is a team with Justin Steele kind of breaking out.
Yeah,
as a starter.
I got a great Justin Steele stat that's gonna kind of tell you the difference between Cubs and Cardinals pitching right now. The Cardinals have 6 quality starts this season.
It's not that many.
It's 5, maybe.
I think it's 4.
I think it's 5, but they have 5 quality starts this season. And Justin Steele has 6 quality starts this season on his own out of 7 starts this year. So he's kind of having a continued breakout from last year. Marcus Stroman's been pretty good. We see
Drew
Wesneski
Smiley.
coming on. Drew Smiley's been solid. So like they're getting good production from their starters. And the kind of interesting thing in the last week or two here, they've brought some guys up from the minor leagues that are kind of interesting and exciting. So Yan Gomes had a concussion, so they brought up Miguel Amaya straight from AA for his major league debut.
Oh, I missed that.
And he's only had a couple hits, but he's hit like 7 or 8 balls over 100 miles per hour. The pitchers absolutely love.
For a little bit of context here on Miguel Amaya, this is a guy who was like the number 1 prospect for the Cubs for like 3 years. He had Tommy John here a year and a half ago.
He's been just absolutely ravaged by injuries over the last 3 years. He's basically not played much minor league baseball at all, but he was a huge prospect a few years ago, and he's still got that talent. And he is and
he's only 24.
Yeah, he's only 24, and very, very talented guy. And he's a guy that's been completely groomed as a catcher all the way from when he signed as a 16-year-old. Like, it's different than like a Wilson Contreras. Wilson Contreras actually was a converted position player to a catcher. So that's part of the reason why his development as a catcher has kind of happened a little bit slower. A guy like Amaya, he comes up on day one. He's ready to catch in the major leagues. Maybe the bat's not quite there, but he's a guy that is probably going to be the Cubs starting catcher come opening day next year. Then you've got guys that have contributed like Nelson Velasquez when he's had opportunities. Christopher Morel, who's been probably the best player in all of AAA this season, just got called back up yesterday. So he'll...
And Christopher Morel, I was surprised, wasn't on the opening day roster.
Yeah, they told him he needed to work on his strikeout rate and kind of locking down positions. And he didn't really fix the strikeout rate that much, but he's made some improvements to his swing, and he was absolutely getting the results at AAA. So he's a guy that maybe can slot around all around the field and kind of improve around the margins of this team. Like you see, like Eric Hosmer has now been pushed to the bench because Matt Mervis got the call over the weekend. So you're kind of seeing
another guy who we thought maybe should have been on the opening day roster.
Absolutely. And I don't understand why the Cubs are not being extremely aggressive about this, because this is like the time that they can actually like make up some ground and go win this division. This is the team that has the ability to go and if they are aggressive, they can overtake the Brewers, and they can kind of make hay when the Cardinals are like actually struggling for once.
Yeah, so to me, this feels a little reminiscent of the like 2015 Cubs, where you had the young guys in like Bryant, Baez, Contreras.
Contreras
like that
wasn't
core
there in 15, but
the rest of them, though.
Russell, yeah.
Like you had that young core, and Anthony Rizzo, who wasn't exactly young at the time, but he's still in the league.
He was young in 2015.
All right, so yeah, you have that young core, and they weren't quite ready, and you kind of knew they weren't quite ready, but they took advantage of it. They made it to the postseason, and then they advanced all the way to the NLCS, and then the next year they go and win the World Series. Like, these players that you're talking about here, Christopher Morel, Matt Mervis, and
Amaya,
and the other one.
Velasquez.
Yes, Nelson Velasquez, thank you. Those are guys that kind of have that same potential as your Chris Bryant, they're maybe not as hyped at prospects as Chris Bryant, but they have similar potential whenever you put them together as a group.
And that's without even mentioning like the stalwarts in the lineup. Kind of opposed to the Cardinals, they're top 4 in the lineup. They're just like set it and forget it. Basically every game, we got Horner, Swanson, Happ, and Suzuki. And I've never been like a you
And
need
then
like
Patrick Wisdom.
and Patrick Wisdom's been pretty solid with the power and everything. But like I've never been like a you have to have one lineup and it just has to be like that every day. Otherwise, you're not going to be good. But there's something about actually having some consistency within your lineup where like it it means that those guys are really really good and you want them in the lineup every single day.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is a Cubs team that should 100% be taking advantage of this. And so far, they're not.
They're not. That's the frustrating part. Like it seems like they're set up for it and it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, like their expected win-loss record is 22-13. Just they're 17-18. So there's a 5-game swing there of games that they were expected to win and they just didn't.
And that's the one-run losses, like I was talking about. They're 2-8 in one-run games.
So is that on David Ross? What is the?
I think
is it just young
it's something that plays out over the course of a season. I mean 30-some games, like it's such a small sample. The Marlins are 11-0 in one-run games. Is that really going to keep up? The Cardinals are 1-7 in one-run games, and the Cubs are 2-8.
All right, so what you're saying is that both the Cardinals and the Cubs are better than what they're playing.
I absolutely believe the Cardinals are not the worst team in the National League. That's ridiculous.
Are you sure? Because I think we might be a 200-loss team.
The Rockies still play in our league here.
You're not going to comment on what I just said?
They might lose 200 this year.
Yeah, we're going to lose 200. You know what? We're going to lose 324 games.
I like it.
Yeah. I think we're pretty close to an hour here. Do we want to do a quick hit on the Pirates and the Reds and the Brewers?
Let's just talk about the Brewers. I don't think we need to talk about the Pirates, and the Reds are really just – the Reds are kind of exactly what we thought they might be at this point.
They are who we thought.
Go, ball, go! Christopher Morel ties the game in the 6th inning.
God dang it. I hate it here.
Welcome back to the majors, Andre Palante.
I hate it here.
So the Brewers are a little bit. Their record looks okay, but they have kind of struggled offensively, and I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. I was kind of talking up their offense at the beginning of the year, but overall they've just been kind of middling. And then the pitching side, I'm surprised that Corbin Burns is not pitching like Corbin Burns we know. He's kind of just been okay. Brandon Woodruff is hurt. Freddie Peralta's been good, but just overall, this team just feels like honestly, the Brewers have the best chance of winning the NL Central at this point. Just with the talent of their roster, their strong pitching, good bullpen, good manager, like those things make them the clear favorite right now to win the division.
Yeah.
But they're still not like blowing the door, like they're not impressive.
Yeah, like this is a team, and I think this maybe explains it best. Like, this is a team with a team ERA of 3.61, which when Corbin Burns is pitching to 3.86, Brandon Woodruff is hurt, Freddie Peralta's at about a 3.32, like you and Peter
Strzelecki.
What?
Strzelecki.
When he's pitching, and he might be a reliever. He's a reliever. Yeah. Never mind. So I won't bring him up then. But, like, this team is definitely underperforming in the pitching department. And they still have a 3.61 ERA. Like, as Corbin Burns figures it out, because he will figure it out, like, if he doesn't, then
he's probably hurt.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll do something crazy if he doesn't figure it out by the end of the season. Brandon Woodruff comes back. He's going to help that. This is a great pitching team still, even though they're kind of just lackluster right now. But it's a team with a team WRC plus of 95, which is below average.
And that's the same problem they've had, right? For a few years.
It's the same problem they've had. Something that it looked for a little bit like it might be fixed, bringing up Bryce Terang, Joey Wiemer, Garrett Mitchell. Now, Garrett Mitchell goes down with an ACL tear that ends the season. What about Joey Weimer and Bryce Terang? They've kind of cooled off a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Like,
And then
so
Christian Yelich is very mediocre still.
yeah, like they have 1, 2, 3. Garrett Mitchell doesn't count because he's injured for a season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys on their entire team with a WRC plus over 100. Can you name them?
How many guys?
5.
5 guys, and are they all starters or are they like bench guys? Because I probably won't get those guys.
They are 4 of them are starters. 1 of them is an important bench guy.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure Rowdy is probably above average.
Yep.
So you got first base getting above average. That's what you would hope you get. William Contreras has been quite good.
Yep.
113
113 for William, 122 for Rowdy.
Yes. And
What'd you say?
Willie Adames.
Yes, 109.
Okay. And is Brian Anderson still above average?
It is 111.
Off the very hot start. So I'm
and
missing
then
one guy, the bench guy. And that is Give me a position or something.
Catcher.
Caratini.
Yep.
Okay.
At 126. Granted, he's only got 44 plate appearances.
I was gonna say he doesn't play a whole lot. So yeah, that's not ideal.
The backup catcher is an important bench guy. So
you need more above average guys than that. And
yeah,
and that was something
Taylor
that
is
they
less
did,
than 50.
They did so well last year. They had basically an entire lineup of guys that were above average. They weren't a lot above the average, but they didn't have any like liabilities.
At least average.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is a below average lineup with an underachieving pitching staff that is still quite good. But that's why they're only 20-15. They're not blowing the doors off the NL Central, destroying the Cardinals, destroying the Reds, destroying a Pirates team that, while they started hot, they're 3-7 in the last 10.
Yeah.
Like, this is a Pirates team that has definitely been overperforming.
I was going to say that we kind of saw the entire correction happen in a week. Basically, like, Jack Sawinski went for, like, one of the best players in the league to having, like, a 1 for 30 stretch that completely tanked all his numbers. Johan Oviedo just regressed. Vince Velasquez was bad, and then he got hurt. Like, everything just came crashing down on the Pirates, and that's exactly what we said last week.
Yeah. So, I don't know. This is a really weird division that
I understand why fans of like other teams outside of this division would look at this division and be like, this division is like bad. It's not exciting. But
well, I mean, we say that. So like, yeah,
we say that, but I find it quite interesting this year because it's way different than it's been.
It's interesting, but not for a good reason. And I think that's the key. Like, we're interested in it because we're nerdy guys.
And
no one else is interested in this dumpster fire of a division right now.
Absolutely,
like, the only other division that is pretty much on par with this dumpster fire is the other one that everyone has thought has been a dumpster fire for years in the American League Central. So we might have to do an entire episode on that one. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more happy because I won't be having to trash the Cardinals for an entire hour. But, you know. Let's see.
So how many wins? So I'll ask you one more question before we finish. How many wins the NL Central this year?
I mean, it depends on if Milwaukee figures out how to hit even a little bit. If Milwaukee figures it out, I think it's honestly still going to be 88-89.
Okay.
Like, I think they could take advantage of it. Now, if they don't, I could 100% still see like 84 wins winning this division.
Yeah, projections, Fangraph projections has the Brewers winning the division with 85 wins. So,
yeah,
that's where we
I can see that.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is I'm hoping that we can come back here in a few weeks and talk about this division again and talk about how much of a difference they've made in the course of a month. That's what I hope. I don't think it's going to happen. I think this is going to continue to be kind of a weird up and down roller coaster of a division this year. Like, the Cardinals are not a fifth place team. They will rebound from that. Cincinnati is very much a fifth place team. We'll see where the Pirates fall. But I still think ultimately at the end of the day, this is going to be between the Brewers, the Cubs, and the Cardinals for the division. Like, we're only, 36 games in. Like, the Cardinals can make up ground in this division of all divisions. It is very possible. Now, they need to learn to take accountability. And by they, I'm not talking about the players. Like, the players do. Like, the pitching staff needs to take accountability for them not performing, because a lot of it is on the pitchers. I mean, Jack doesn't just walk 7 batters in a game because of Wilson. That's Jack not locating. Jack has taken accountability for it. He stood up for Willie. Waino did the same thing. Granted, he's only played 1 game because of an injury. But the rest of the team needs to follow suit. And I think whenever we all have a come-to-Jesus moment, that's when the team is going to start to turn around. But Mo and Ollie have to be in that too. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if you have any final thoughts on that or on anything about the division. That was just my final thoughts because it's obviously been on my mind for a very long time.
Yeah, it's going to be a struggle, I think, for these teams. And maybe one of the teams kind of gets hot at the right time, but I'm not seeing like a runaway winner in the division, and I'm not seeing an elite team, and that shouldn't be any surprise. Actually, even from the beginning of the season, I didn't think there was one amazing team in this division. Now, the fact that we have 2 abysmal teams. Yeah. Actually, no, that's not even that weird. That's not. It's just the teams that are the order of the division right now is just completely shocking. Yeah. The only thing that would be more shocking is if you flipped Milwaukee and Cincinnati. Yeah. So, but cool. Well, I think we should probably stop the trash the NL Central train for today. Come back next week with a hopefully much happier topic. We need to get all this edited and up for all of you folks that want to listen or are listening, I guess, because it's the end of the episode, are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, yada, yada, yada. If you also watch it on YouTube, it will be a couple days late. We still don't have last week's up. I will be flying home on Saturday and hopefully on Sunday. I am not sleeping all day, but I can get both last week's and this week's episode posted. We will be back on Monday of next week. New day. So make sure if you hang out with us live on Twitch, that will be Monday going forward. So hopefully that doesn't mess with too many people's schedules. I think it works well for us. We could also potentially move it to Wednesday at some point if this doesn't work out, but we're going to give it a shot on Monday. So I think that is all we have for you tonight, unless you've got anything else. That's it. Talk to you next time. See you next time.
If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.